Hi, Jeff here from GCD Property. Today we're going to look at the Australian population growth over the next year and beyond, and we're going to sort of interpret that data and see how we think that's going to affect the Australian property market. So this is a live website that's showing the births today or yesterday were 384 births and 191 deaths. So what that means is our natural population growth in Australia is growing by around about 200 people a day, which is huge. So that's just the local population growth. And then we've got our international migration that's starting to head into Australia. And this is having a real effect over, the COVID pandemic where people weren't traveling. We're getting back to real life figures. And what we're seeing now is people are really keen to come back into the country, back into Australia. So we're forecasting, this website is forecasting during 2023, so the next 12 months, that Australia's population will increase by 415,000. Which is a huge growth. So these people need to rent, these people need to buy somewhere. And this is going to put a real effect on the property market. So the rental demand is going to be huge. We are seeing already in many areas real rental crisis where people simply can't afford to rent property. The rents are increasing. There's a lot more demand than supply. And that's going to push up the rents and the yields of returns for popular investors. And it's something that we can't naturally control. It's just looking at the facts and figures and how we're going to interpret that and how we can take advantage of some of these figures and also giving us confidence overall in the property market. So we can see there the number of births is very strong in Australia. We're continuing to see that internal population growth as well as that external growth rate now. And what we're seeing now is international students coming back into Australia. We're seeing backpackers, travellers coming back into Australia, and we're also seeing that long-term population growth of people wanting to immigrate back into Australia to settle down, and also that strong growth overall and demand for Australia is really going to put, I think, our property market in a good stead going forward over the longer term. So we see that growth rate in Australia over the last 12 months has been very strong, and again the forecasts are going forward in the next 12 months is very strong. The other good thing is the population growth, we see it broken down there by age bracket, and the majority of this population growth is going to occur in that age bracket of between 15 years of age and 64. So that's the people that are coming into the workforce, going to be generating income, going to be having families, and going to need properties to buy or rent. So when you look at the overall statistics, we're seeing population growth in Australia of about just over 1,100 people per day, which is huge. So we're starting to see some of the effects of that. It's not only the data that we rely on, we should also look at what's happening on the streets as well. Personally, myself, I've been driving around the Southeast corridor and seeing what's happening here. Now we're starting to see properties change, real rental demand, real rental crisis, and we're seeing a change in the rental market as well. So because of the strong growth and this demand for people to do internal holidays, going to travel within Australia rather than go overseas, that's putting a pressure on the short-term accommodation as well, which will lead into demand for long-term. So what we're seeing now, I'm personally seeing, is a lot of properties are being changed from long-term rentals into short-term accommodation, Airbnb style accommodation, because investors, property owners can make a much better return, and there's the real demand for the accommodation, the short-term accommodation. So those rental properties that were previously long-term rental properties are being taken off the market and putting into short-term rental accommodation, which again is limiting the supply of property with a number of other factors, limiting borrowing capacities. Banks are really making borrowing capacities lower than what they previously were. It's going to be a very good statistic for property investors and property values going forward in the long term. And we should always look at the property market over the long-term growth. So this is going to have a real effect, and it's really the time now we should look at these figures, interpret for our property decisions, how we can interpret that and take advantage of this current market and statistics as well. So I hope that's been helpful for property owners or investors, and see you on the next topic. Thanks.